We now turn to the Decision Support System segment of the operator panel. As previously mentioned, the DSS is continuously performing predictive analyses of resource utilization and network performance in order to forecast the emergence of bottleneck. Every night, the DSS issues a report with its findings, as indicated here. The comforting green coloring of the first set of DSS messages informs the operator that the analysis indicated no need to initiate network upgrades. After a number of days, however, we see that the DSS issues a red alert on September 21, 2015. As the red coloring of the alert suggests, the DSS message now indicates that the analysis revealed a need to initiate a network upgrade for the continued provisioning of coverage and service quality as targeted in the network-oriented objectives. Upon clicking the Show DSS Report button, an HTML-based report is displayed, indicating and characterizing the most urgent anticipated problem zones, for instance by expressing the urgency of the noted problem and the significance of the triggering metric. For each such problem zone, the key results of the DSS analysis may be shown on a dedicated DSS panel by clicking the associated Open DSS Panel button. Observe that the red banner of the DSS panel is different from that of the other panels, in order to stress that we are no longer looking at the actual evolution of the Hanover network, but rather at predictions of future performance. Performance or capacity bottlenecks are analyzed in the form of so-called problem zones, regions in the network where the predicted loads are deemed too high to allow performance targets to be satisfied. In the configuration menu of the DSS panel, a list of such anticipated problem zones is presented, ordered by the date at which they are predicted to arise. At the time of DSS triggering, 3 problem zones are predicted to emerge in the considered network region, with the first one emerging on January 4, 2015. It is this anticipated bottleneck that triggered the red DSS alert on the operator panel. The timing of the DSS alert relative to the predicted time of the emerging problem zone is derived from the assumed longest deployment delay associated with the different network upgrades that are considered to prevent the problem zone from occurring. As shown here, the DSS has compiled a list of recommended network upgrades that may be effectuated to prevent the selected problem zone. The list currently contains several options to deploy new LTE microsites and/or upgrade existing LTE macrosites in the area from having 3 sectors to having 6 sectors. The DSS panel is designed to visualize the predicted overload evolutions in the noted problem zones for a baseline scenario and 2 distinct upgrade scenarios. As an example, let us compare the baseline scenario, meaning that no upgrades are enforced, with the deployment of microsites S12, S41, S92, and alternatively the 6 sectorization of macrosites S22 and S65. The final configuration option in this menu allows us to pick, given the chosen network upgrades associated with the selected problem zone, for which of the listed problem zones we would like to animate the predicted evolution of the degree of overload. Obvious initial choice would be to pick here the very same bottleneck for which the selected network upgrades are recommended, but in a follow-up analysis it may be insightful to also observe the effects of such upgrades on nearby problem zones, which may potentially influence an operator's decision on which upgrade to deploy. Once we click the play button, the 3 selected scenarios will be animated on the panel. At the top of the panel we see the immediate surroundings of the predicted problem zone, which itself is indicated with the red dotted line polygon. Other predicted problem zones in the vicinity are also shown, but with a black dotted line polygon. As we will see when time progresses and traffic demand continues to grow, the time-varying background color map shown in each of the views indicates a predicted overload metric throughout the area. Not until the reported date associated with the problem zone are the overloads deemed significant enough to cause performance problems, and are they visible in the regional network views. Observe that up until the moment at which the selected upgrades become effective, the networks and the shown metrics are identical in all 3 views. On the timeline, distinct markers indicate key events, such as the day at which problem zone 1 was predicted to emerge, or in other words, the day at which the overload metric for that problem zone was predicted to first exceed a predefined threshold, indicated in the chart by a distinction between the green and red background colors. From this day backwards, the DSS derives for each selected upgrade the day at which the deployment of the upgrade should be initiated, considering typical deployment lead times depending on the nature of the upgrade. Furthermore, a safety margin of 3 additional weeks is enforced, while a decision period of 4 weeks is assumed for the operator to select which of the shortlisted network upgrades to deploy. On December 14, 2015, 3 weeks before the day on which the problem zone is predicted to occur, the upgrades become effective. These upgrades can be recognized in the regional network view by the additional LTE microsites deployed here and the 6 sectorized LTE sites shown here and here. Considering the baseline scenario, from the date where the problem zone is predicted to arise, a red solid line polygon is shown, which from then on continues to grow as the increasing traffic worsens the overload in the area and no upgrade is effectuated to resolve this. At all times, the red dotted line polygon remains visible to indicate the anticipated problem zone that triggered the DSS alert. The same applies to the other problem zones in the vicinity shown with black line polygons, noting only that their date of emergence is somewhat later in time. Besides the background map showing the spatial presentation of the overload metric, also the cell markers themselves are colored to indicate their predicted loads. In the alternative scenarios, we immediately see the effects of the network upgrades in that the load situation is improved by the added network resources. For the upgrade scenario where 3 new LTE microsites are deployed, we observe that this indeed prevents problem zone 1 from occurring for a few months from the time that the problem zone would otherwise emerge, while towards the end of the prediction period some hints of an upcoming overload area can be seen. For the scenario where 2 existing LTE macrosites are 6 sectorized, which is considered to be a more expensive upgrade, we observe that it near completely resolves problem zones 1 and 3 throughout the shown period. Since we look at the degree of overload in problem zone 1, which has been prevented by both selected network upgrades, the chart only shows an overload curve for the baseline scenario, which is indeed observed to first reveal significant overload at the time marked threshold exceeded, and from then onwards shows the daily load fluctuations that occur on top of an upwards trend. Considering these predicted load effects for the different recommended upgrades, as well as the different deployment costs associated with each upgrade, the network operator will then make a decision as to what upgrade to deploy in the network. In order to better anticipate future bottlenecks, the operator should inform the DSS of the timing and nature of any planned network upgrades so that these can be appropriately taken into account. If we then return to the actual evolution of the Hanover network, we see that the network panel is still showing the current network operations, while the KPI panel is still showing the key performance metrics for the given scenario. If we jump forward a few more days, we note how the green DSS message on the operator panel indicates that no network upgrades are needed other than those previously recommended. The DSS thus stresses that already released alerts recommending network upgrades should still be considered, but are not reiterated in each subsequent DSS report. This brings us to the end of this sequence of demonstrations. With this final version of the SEMAFOUR Demonstrator, we showcase the project's vision on unified self-management of heterogeneous radio access networks and demonstrated key elements of the envisioned self-management system that have been developed within the SEMAFOUR project. This includes the policy-based SON management function and the SON coordinator, in charge of jointly coordinating deployed SON functions. Furthermore, we had a more detailed look at a number of advanced multi-layer and/or multi-RAT SON functions, including LTE Wi-Fi traffic steering, advanced traffic steering for high-mobility users, self-optimized vertical sectorization, and dynamic spectrum allocation in integrated GSM LTE networks. Lastly, we demonstrated our implementation of a decision support system designed to aid the network operator in the timely anticipation of performance bottlenecks and the deployment of effective upgrades of its self-optimizing network to ensure that its radio network capacity matches the growing traffic demand for the continued quality of service provisioning. For more information on the SEMAFOUR project and its technological achievements, including more detailed descriptions of the developed self-management solutions and the attainable performance gains, the audience is kindly referred to the deliverables and publications listed on the project website. Thank you very much for your interest in the SEMAFOUR project.